Dark Portents. And welcome to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare, the online home of excellence. With Skillshare, you can learn in a very pleasant way. The courses are engaging and easy to access. The passion positively flows from the videos. You will also be joining a phenomenal community where finding kindred spirits will be a breeze. I've recently done Productivity Habits That Stick using Time Theming by Mike Vardy. Excellent tips, which I intend to use immediately. Meet similar spirits on the hunt for improvement. The first 1,000 to sign up through the link in the description will gain a 1-month free trial. So do not tarry. Sign up today. Story continued from Thaddeus and Tarquinus playlist. We sit under a darkening sun, its primal energies now mere embers. Now it is weak, its light is dim, its fires all but spent. I meditate in the observation hall. I am bathed in its dimming light. It is dying, preparing to transform, to take on the next part of its journey. I know how it feels. Though I am at the exact opposite point, for my fire burns near its peak. In short years, I shall reach my zenith. Then, like the sun in miniature, in both size, power, and longevity, I shall wane. I shall burn less brightly. I shall prepare to transform. Strange I use that word when I consider my mortality. I, like all mortals, will cease to be. Avoidance again. How odd. I am not usually so oblique, so cowardly. I will die. There. I have thought it. Now one might previously have considered this to be the end. For most it is. For the vast majority of sentient beings in the galaxy, it is final. Yet there is one more element. What happens afterwards? For the greenskin, there is no need for concern, for they are either nothing, or they are returned to the gestalt beings we designate their entities, their deities. Collections of their raw power, their subconscious will. They call them Gork and Mork. For the Tau, perhaps there is nothing. That has yet to be seen at the very least. For the majority of humanity, we are told that when we expire, our bodies finally or violently ending, then we are taken into the loving embrace of the Emperor, to sit at his feet, to witness his splendor. Yet is that true? Or do we simply fall apart? Our soul energies in the warp simply drifting away from one another as we die. Our souls unravel to be simply absorbed into the hellscape that is the warp. Perhaps. It could be worse, of course. It could be much, much worse. For what start as blessings can sometimes become curses. Thus it is with the Eldar, I am told. For they once reincarnated, their souls moving from one life into the next. When their bodies died, they simply retained their senses, drifting in the immaterium until a new Eldar host body was birthed. A sublime existence without end, without fetter. Yet, this has become their curse. For when they die, they do not simply unravel as we. They retain their sentience and whole as they once did. Yet this is when they are found by the one they call She Who Thirsts. Slanesh. The Prince of Pleasure is what we call him. It was formed by them, the Eldar. They made a being that would call itself a god, a dark one at that. What they must have experienced, the things they must have done to have midwifed such a horror. It does not bear deep contemplation. Yet, when they die, they are now consumed by it. The parent consumed by their child. It is said to be deeply unpleasant. I can only imagine. So few humans know of any of this, of course. Why would they? Most are not permitted to know even the basics of the reality of the galaxy, about how many and how dangerous are the threats to humanity, our Imperium. Perpetually hanging on the knife's edge. Oh, we are all perpetually told of the enemy that ravens at our door. All across the galaxy, humanity endures. We do not thrive or move forward. We simply endure. We have the Emperor. Well, I shall think on that more another time. It is not for today. But most do not really, truly understand the plight we are all in, constantly. And even those who do know about the threat of the alien, the Xenos, they do not know what I know. About the beings that stalk the night, the ones that hide behind the veil, ever testing us, ever trying to push through, ever trying to enter real space. There are few ways that they can gain true corporeal existence in our realm, nor are they long here most often. But there are always degrees of influence, and all it takes is one bad day, one bad decision, one whispered plea, and they gain a foothold. First in the soul, then it grows. If fed, it can then slowly begin to affect the mind. Then finally, when it gains utter dominance of the heart, head and soul, then it can possess. It will have a physical method of enacting its heinous schemes, all bent to more of its kind appearing, or to its individual power. But when this power grows enough, invariably and inevitably, they always summon hordes of their kind through. Demons. It is what we call them, or in this case, the dark gods of chaos. There are a myriad of names that they have used across 100 centuries, across 1,000,000 worlds, more. They have hunted and corrupted races before us, have surged and slaughtered entire civilizations. Yet, my instructor says that most agree it is humanity who have birthed 3 of them, out of 4 alone. But when they formed, they had the ability to split elements of themselves off, to create minor copies of their degenerate form and function. The demons that we face. There are a myriad of lesser deities and beings, intelligence and malevolent things in the warp. Yet each comes back to its core. They are warp beings. They are not like us. And they are to be destroyed. For if the decision is left to them, they would control us all, humanity in its total, and they would make our universe into a copy of theirs. They would turn it into hell. I think on all of this today, as I have for the last few days, the days we sit under this dying sun. We are waiting for someone. Thaddeus told us all that he has spread his net wide, and here is where we expect to pick up another ally. We are hidden as best we can, due to the local issue that Thaddeus mentioned, yet is still unwilling to explain to me. Odd. But then, It's an odd time. But he has revealed who we are, hopefully, waiting for. He added the hopefully himself. Hence, I am not entirely sure he is entirely sure. Perhaps his authority is not what it was. Perhaps he has dimmed like this star. Personally, I do not think this is the case. If anything, I think he is more concerned about if they still live. He has been bombing around the galaxy for quite some time now. Yet very soon, I shall see how utterly pathetic that last thought was. For I am about to meet people who have lived for not decades, not centuries as he has, but for millennia. It is time. I sense them before the klaxon goes off and I am summoned to the bridge. Strange that I could feel them arrive. But then, the galaxy has become a thing of wonders and terrors to me since I met my tutor. I used to call him Master, but not now. It sometimes pops out, but even he corrects me on it now. He is my tutor. He is my benefactor. He is my superior in the order. He is my friend. To think that one such as I should have a friend such as he. I come from a backwater world now in ashes. He is a chosen son of Ultramar, of Macragge. Yet he claims I will be the greater, that his entire life has led him to this point, to finding me, to my training, to my taking the mantle from him when the time is right. But as we both know, the time will be when he expires. But the vision, I cannot stomach the thought of the end fate seems destined for him. I will not allow it. And I am no slouch these days, no matter how humble my beginnings. For I am one in a million. I am a psyker. But even amongst my own kind, I am one in a million. I am powerful. Beyond scope is what he had stated. Of course, I do not see this, do not feel this. He states it is a yet. I think it is perhaps his wishful thinking. But no matter what, I will not disappoint him. I will allow him to pass thinking I am his greatest find, no matter what the reality may be. For I am supposed to be the 100th in the line. I am being specifically trained to be the next Thaddeus. But perhaps it is not the 100th that matters so much as a continuation of the line. Even he admits, humans find meaning in patterns that are not even there. If that is true, then all I need do is fulfill the role as best I can. Then I can find my successor. Maybe they will be the one. Maybe it will be many after them. But as I have thought again and again, I will not be the one to break the line. I will not fail him. Not now. Not ever. The call goes out. I rise from the lotus position and feel the blood returning to most of my extremities. More blood, I should say. As taught, I have always had control. I have kept the required amounts of sustenance flowing to the areas that need it. Yet, now, I feel light. As I stride, each boot connection with the metallic floor resounds, like a chime of its own, a meditation bell. It brings me out of myself and back to reality. And with each step, I feel the mildest of flutters in my stomach again. Nerves. I am indeed nervous. Despite my moments of calm, I know why one of them is coming. At least one of them. for I have not yet had my training. He swore I would be honed, like a lump of ore into a steel blade. He swore I would be trained by the very best. Of course, he could have been referring to my first tutor in these arts. If I am rare, then she is unique. Of a bloodline that is sacred, she helped me through those first days and weeks, showed me things I will never forget, revealed things I would wish to. Yet she also helped me to become centered, to be able to protect myself and those around me. Not in the ways that Thaddeus wants, of course, but in the ways that were most important at the time. She showed me how to veil my presence in the warp, how to mask my thoughts, how to not invade the thoughts of others, generally. The 3 keys, she called them, the 3 keys to silence. And I cannot imagine surviving even these past few months without them. I pass the threshold of the deck and take one last look back. I should not be able to see them, out there so distant in the darkness of the void. I should not be able to even sense anything outside of my immediate range of vision. Yet, there are many things that go with my ability. Many. Those who do not know have never tasted it, never lived it. They like to catalogue and name us, subdivide and explain us. They attempt to make sense of something senseless, something mystical, something ephemeral. So I am dubbed a telepath, just as Ursula is classified as a telekinetic. Yet we are so much more. And I can see their shuttle move through space like a fish through water. No bursts of power from its rear. This small cutter moves with the solar winds. I can see the light bouncing off its sails as it moves towards us. I will keep this for myself. Not a secret, per se, but something personal. For now I am an Inquisitor. In training, perhaps, but I hold the title. I should have mysteries of my own, abilities that none know of but me. For the reality of the situation is stark. I am now an Inquisitor. And not just anyone. I am a chosen successor of a tradition. The wisdom. Any of our entourage could be deep agents of the enemy. Yes, it is hard to look at any of my friends thus. But Thaddeus has taught me well. Friends is a term of endearment to an Inquisitor, but it does not have the meaning attributed by all others of our race. For the friend of an Inquisitor is merely a person he or she will miss when they are gone. Nobody is above suspicion. Nobody can be truly trusted. Not even our closest aides. For in a universe where an enemy can possess them, or simply slay them and wear their faces, even for decades, there can be no true friendship. Despite being his only chance, he stated even then, he gave me the choice. When I had awoken, been finally let off that slab and its restraints, after talking, after being scanned and doused in holy water, having my skin touched by silver, having my breath checked for infection. After 100 other tests, he deemed I was who I said I was. He deemed me free of taint. At least as much as he could then. Of course, there have been further tests, like when he wheeled me out into the presence of Tiggy, as he called him. But he did offer me the choice. He let me know what my life would be. To be not the hunter, but the hunted. To be hated by all of humanity. To be despised by all I defended. For all of the Imperium to want me dead, as often as they wanted and needed my help. And kith and kin, hearth and home, even the warmth of the campfire of travellers on the same journey, even amongst those I had collected as my trusted few. Even then, I would be alone. Forever. Never to drop my guard, never to show pity or mercy or clemency, if in one iota of doubt. I could smile and smirk, charm and chat, but deep down, every word I uttered, every deed I performed, all of it was a sacrament, a task, a duty. For every second of every day, I would sacrifice my own will, wishes, hopes and dreams. I would sacrifice my entire being, all I was, all I could ever be, every moment, to him, to the Emperor, to his righteous goal, the protection of humanity. And so I walk. I make my way to the bridge. Yet halfway there, I turn around as they all pass me. In silence, Barbon glowers at my perceived tardiness, I presume, but then it could be as well about my merest existence. Barbon will never love me as he does Thaddeus. I am a mutant. I am a threat. He may like my personality, or our shared loyalty to Thaddeus, but oaths or not, he will never be to me as he is to my tutor. Ursula wanders past as well, still cold and aloof. I hope she will forgive me one day, but that day will certainly not be any time soon. Louis and Devrin are next up. Devrin makes a swift lurch towards me with a raised fist. I duck back a little, just out of swinging range. He chuckles as he passes, the punch unthrown. Louis looks up at me for a second, giving me his strange leer, but waddles past as the head of our little group follows up, his orange fur kind of swishing as he moves. And there he is, my tutor, my superior, Thaddeus.
Oh, you made it! Wonderful! I was wondering if I would have to come and throw a bucket of slop on you to break the navel-gazing.
Thank you for your legendary restraint.
Oh, think nothing of it. I deem it more a reprieve than a cancellation. I'll catch you at it yet, mark my words.
So, Xenos then? They've arrived?
Funny way of putting it, if you don't mind me saying. Especially as you've met one of them before. Best to keep your mouth shut until you understand the lay of the land, says he.
Strong and unsubtle use of language from him there. Understand. Understanding takes time, as he always said, so he expects me to be very docile for a while. Why? I'll try not to put my foot in it.
Try means bugger all to me, Tarquinus.
Got it.
Top of the class as usual. Don't mess it up.
We walk down to the hangar. It's not large, but it can take a shuttle coming in. Just. But this is no normal ship, no normal shuttle. We all stand there, fanned out to left and right of Thaddeus. He is the central point. They are, after all, coming to see him, not any of us. I look down the lines. Barbon, the huge space marine in all-black armor, covering what would once have been chapter markings. He stands at Thaddeus' right hand. His bolter is on his side, his power sword at his shoulder. He can get that thing out before anyone can blink. Ursula is as ravishing as usual, yet cowled. No part of her face is showing under the gossamer veils. She wears her most official-looking robes, appearing far more officious than she is, far more magical, distant. Devrin is at my left, and I at Thaddeus's. He is looking serious, stern, but he is not overly worried. His stance says it all. Louis seems to be sanguinely standing behind Thaddeus, slightly to his right. perhaps ready to leap onto the back of Barbar, as he has done before to such telling effect. Or perhaps he is angling himself perfectly between the protection of Thaddeus's refraction field and the towering space marine. Either way, nothing is harming Louis unless it goes through those two. What a clever ape. And then it arrives. I can see it before any here, I would wager. Again, I'm not really sure how. Okay, I have my augmented eye, but that is not what I use to clear the distance. Like a lens in my mind's eye, as was shown me by my first master, when I did not even know I was gifted. When she shut down the navigators of our pursuers, I see the ship coming. It is sleek and beautiful, graceful in its every movement. This, I soon discover, is only a reflection of those who built this wonder. It comes in, and the metallic wing folds like satin as it approaches our vessel. It glides on nothing, making no sound at all, as it slows, and then finally pushes its way through our energy field, the one that keeps the air in this deck from flooding out into the void. It is sheen and sleek. It is silent and looks deadly. The thing lands without the obvious use of thrusters, yet I feel some form of change in the air as it does so. Gravitics, I would imagine. But then, does it really matter? We cannot use their technology any more than they would choose to use ours. The vehicle opens with only the mildest of hisses, and a gangway calmly extends down to the deck. As it moves, so do those who have arrived. Their motions so silk and smooth, hypnotic, yet with a tinge of pain and barely controlled speed. Like a stalking carnivore, they move with implied threat, yet with a grace that would bring any performer to tears. Eldar. 2 of them. One walks first, the other behind. The distance between them is more than ceremony, more than etiquette. The first is the leader, the other attached, but I can sense that they are not really together. I recognize the latter Eldar. I have seen it before. It saved our lives. More to say, it saved Thaddeus's life. Mine was a collateral gain of circumstance only. The first Eldar is tall, willowy, but poised. I find I will run out of adjectives to describe their sublime movements. They are ancient beyond belief. I know this. Can feel it exuding from them as a starving man would smell cooking meat. The first is dressed as one of their lords, so much I can tell, or so much I hope, for such opulence is beyond belief. Each and every millimeter of his robes are adorned with tiny sigils, microglyphs that make up entire patterns. I can feel the power contained therein. Every inch of him screams majesty. Every bangle, brooch or ring is covered with arcane script. His helm is tall and its face mirrored. None can see his features. None can know his mind. I can detect nothing from him. I do not probe. I am not that stupid. But usually there is a background whisper from all I meet. But not him. The Lord of the Eldar walks towards us firmly, with purpose as much as poise. He then gets to within comfortable speaking distance, and stops. His hands extended at his side in a welcome of sorts. Out of the corner of my eye, I see that the same stance is taken by Thaddeus. I do not break my stare at these interlopers. I should be more mindful of my thoughts. That is the propaganda for the many. They are guests. Our guests are now close enough to open the proceedings. Thaddeus steps forward once. Your light illuminates the darkest corners of my humble vessel. You exalt us with your presence, Great One, walker of the paths most perilous. the Eldar responds. Thank you, Thaddeus. Ever the genteel facade. It is somewhat appreciated.
You know why I have called you.
Of course. Your strands are well known to me and mine. The pact holds?
It does indeed. My successor. He needs to be aware.
Yes, he does. But our confidence is not the same as yours. His strands are hidden. He is a concern. We will need to test him.
He is my successor.
Which is something you will have to live with. Ask not that we die for your naivety.
Then how do we progress?
A measuring.
He will pass.
He had better do, for your sake. He is now all the hope you have, Thaddeus.
I am more than aware. You will look at my things?
Yes. We always do when we answer your call, do we not?
I do not like to presume.
In this, if only in this, you do not presume. It is part of the pact. We fulfill our obligations.
Aye, you always have.
Now, we must discuss the situation. He must be witnessed, measured.
Aye, we shall discuss this in private first.
Of course. You did not say that he was with you, intoned the Eldar while looking past Barbon.
Oh, no, guess not.
Thaddeus stepped back slightly to permit no blockage between them. And with that, the Lord of the Eldar then bowed his deepest bow. It was not to Thaddeus. It was to Louis, a fellow survivor. And Louis put knuckle to forehead and bowed his head in return. It was quiet, personal, just for them. Only they understood. They were both survivors of the First War. They knew things, had seen things we could never even comprehend. Louis then grimaced at the other Eldar, the one loitering behind. It went near none, backed away from all. But then it happened. The thing. It introduced itself. Ursula shrank away from the noise. Devrin took a step sideways. So he was more free to act. Barbon did not move a muscle, but his gaze at the Eldar was steely. I had that spine-tingling rush as the noise echoed around the room, spectral, terrifying. But not to me. Despite the history, despite knowing what it was. Still, the sound did not scare me as it did the others. Because inside the laughter, I could hear the sadness, the pain, the resignation. This was a cursed being. A being touched and now owned by its nemesis. The most lethal of all Eldar kind in any dimension. It was a solitaire. The one who I had witnessed before. The one who saved us from a chaos-possessed Astartes. Thaddeus bowed his head. The Eldar bowed so low, it was comical, seemed sarcastic. You came. You came. How could I not? You owe me nothing. We are square. Old friend, old enemy. Unclean one. Dancer of solitude. You do not need to do this. Yes, I do. Not for you. For me. For once, as before, our goals align. But unlike you, I will not ask a boon in return. You humble me. You humble yourself. It is an honor to be in your presence. It is a curse, old friend. We both know this. Save your verbal dainties for the farseer, for he is worthy of such niceties. I am here to kill. We all are. Let us not pretend it is anything but a hunt of common cause.
Indeed. Let us hunt the bastard together.
Indeed, let us. There are quarters away from all others.
There are. They are prepared. You will not be disturbed.
Good, said the solitaire, with an edge of finality.
Right, everyone. It's best not to take risks, so nobody goes within 5 foot of our friend here, under any circumstances whatsoever.
He then turned to me.
You especially. You've a bad track record with she-who-thirsts.
At this, the Farseer seemed to take a tiny shuffle backwards, as if offended, or even scared, purely by the name being uttered. I chose to lighten the moment, playing along with Thaddeus. He knew what he was doing better than I. Oh ho ho, I'd hardly make the cut as Ordo Malleus if I had to avoid the minions of the Prince of Pleasure.
Oh, planned it already, eh? Going to sort yourself out before the big fights, eh?
You are such a... We're in company, you know.
Oh, true, but we're going to be in close proximity for a long time. Best be candid.
Oh, right then.
No rebuttal, I see,
said he with a smirk. Throne knows you're a trial sometimes. Only sometimes?
Only sometimes,
piped in both the Farseer and the solitaire in unison, much to my surprise. Probably to theirs too, by the looks between them.
Indeed. I shall have to try harder, get it up to most of the time.
See? Said he, nodding in my direction, but looking at the Eldar.
He's full of good ideas as our Tarquinus, always observant, very helpful.
And with that, the solitaire and the Farseer followed Thaddeus and Baldermort away into the ship, the former keeping its distance from the latter. Baldermort was between the old man and the Eldar executioner at every point, but the Farseer was given more leeway. He glided along next to the Inquisitor as they began to talk in a language he had never taught me, sounds that echoed from the very beginning of the galaxy. Louis watched them go, then utterly absorbed in his own new project, waddled off, perpetually tinkering with something small and metallic that had sparks cascading from it as he went. Devrin let out a sigh of relief, then spun on his heels and wandered back into the ship. Ursula just watched them all go. They seemed to just sag down as they finally disappeared from view. Of course, I understood why. Silence came from the Farseer, its mind a thing so complex and disciplined that we could not read a thing. But its compatriot? I had not experienced it when we met before, as I had not yet come into my gifts. Looking at it was a trial, as it shifted and moved like a dizzying collage of darkness to our witch sight. Where the Harlequin armor was light, this thing, the solitaire, was shielded in shadows, and the whispers that issued from its passing were like a nightmare barely remembered. The unsettled feeling, all that remained. It was touched by the dark gods, and with every fibre of my being, I had to fight the urge to end it. I now understand the room we made, the glyphs, the wards, sigils and circles. I had thought that we were making a playroom for Thaddeus, in case we managed that rarest of all things, the capture of a Neverborn. As he always puts it, he likes to give as good as we get. But no. I now know that all of these protections were for this being, the solitaire, to keep its influence from punishing the crew, of which there are many, from affecting Ursula and I. We took many days making that room, many. I learned so much. I will remember every second of it, of course. I have placed it front and center in the crystal fortress of my memories. Many hours pass, the Eldar Farseer and Thaddeus in deep discourse, it seemed. When I was summoned, I was not surprised to see the Eldar there, waiting patiently. Thaddeus rose as I entered. The Eldar did not. His helm now on the table between them, his long dour face was on show. His eyes were like crystals, his skin almost translucent. He looked like no Eldar I had ever seen, but then I had not seen a great many. Thaddeus took the one step toward me and began.
Tarquinus, this is Tan-Ir-Enaid of Craftworld Noon. Among his people, he is called the Soul of Fire, and he is the last living Eldar who has crossed the man we hunt, matched him. Farseer Tan-Ir-Enaid is a lord of his people, possibly their most powerful protector. Yet he is here. Despite Anun being in dire need, he has answered my call. For he knows the threat this bastard poses. Not just to us, not just to his craft world, not just to this sector, but to all and everything in this galaxy. And we are honored beyond belief that he is with us.
He wiggled his eyebrows at me, but I do not really need the prompt. I bow. I bow low. The Eldar merely tips his glass in my direction. A liquid, like a rainbow storm, is in his exquisite glass. He obviously brought both with him, for there are two more. One is near empty and explains the flush on Thaddeus' cheeks, but one is clearly for me. It is half filled only. Thaddeus passes me the liquor.
Better sip this, trust me, but you are going to need it.
He then retreats to his chair and sits, giving a wave of his hand. It is the turn of the Farseer to speak. There is no third chair. I do not sit, but I do take a sip of the drink, nodding to him in gratitude instead of deference. The smell is like the memories of a summer's day. The taste. Perhaps one day I will be able to explain it, be able to note every sensation it elicits from my taste buds. But I feel I could spend a decade just considering how best to describe it. And even the slightest sip makes my head spin slightly, and my feet become a thing of memory. I better not drink until he is finished, thinks I. And he begins. You are powerful. Too much so for a Monkey, a human. You are a danger. I should end you now and save the galaxy. Yet, you are the successor of the greatest of humans, a paragon of your race. We owe the line of the wisdom all. Without their help, we would be lost to the Dark One. It has been agreed that I, Tan-Ir-Enaid, shall teach you. He takes a dramatic sip of his drink, watching me with those crystallizing eyes. He watches me for a reaction, but I know there is more to come. If you pass the measuring. I nod. What would you have me do? The Eldar stifles a slight curling of the corner of his lips. He bows his head forward slightly, looking past his delicate eyebrows with a depth of gaze I have never witnessed before, never experienced, even from Thaddeus. We have found a ship, one of import to you. I frown, taking another sip of my drink accidentally and instantly regretting it as his face swims, yet his eyes hold me transfixed, pinned to the spot. It holds the last remains of your people, the last survivors who fled before your world was consumed by evil. My mouth drops open. I am not alone. The Eldar gives me a second of joy before taking it all away. They have survived this far, but we do not think it is innocent. The strands of fate show that there is no coincidence in their flight. The warp guides them, and we would have you put them to the question. All of them. My face drops. I am agog. I will watch your every action. If I find you worthy, I will give unto you the gift rarely received by any Monkey. And at that, Thaddeus takes over.
We head there now. Within 3 days, we shall be able to catch this ship. And when we do, we will board her. And you will execute your duties as an Inquisitor, as my successor, and the future of our line.
Execute.
And if the Soul of Fire deems you unworthy,
he said,
our line ends.
He will kill me. To be continued.